Support for your public radio station comes from our members and from Bob Johnson Auto Group, proud supporter of Connections with Evan Dawson. Believing an informed public makes for a stronger community. BobJohnsonAutoGroup.com. And Excelis Blue Cross Blue Shield, with a mission to address health inequities by building up communities and breaking down health barriers. Excelis Blue Cross Blue Shield, everybody benefits. More at excelisbcbs.com.
From WXXI News, this is Connections. I'm Evan Dawson. Our connection this hour was made this past Sunday on North Clinton Avenue with the season opening for the International Plaza. The event space and marketplace is a hub for all things Latino culture, from music and art, food and beverage. You can visit every Sunday from 1 to 5 for market days, which are running now through October 12th. This year's celebrations come during a time when organizers say there is an understandable anxiety and uncertainty among the Latino community due to conversations and events happening at the national level, but they say there is no better time to celebrate the contributions of the Latino community. So this hour, we're talking about the upcoming events there. I suspect a lot of listeners and viewers, if you're watching on our YouTube channel and WXXI News, maybe you haven't been in the International Plaza yet. We're going to talk about the mission of it and what's going on there with our guest, Jason Barber, International Plaza Site Manager for Ibero-American Development Corporation. Welcome back to the program.
Thank you for having me.
And for people who hear that you're with the Ibero-American Development Corporation, you know, you hear Ibero, you think one thing. It's a big umbrella. You want to explain a little?
It's a very big family, and we love it. Ibero American Development Corporation is the development side of Ibero. We manage about 225 different units and apartments, houses, multi-units, buildings. We're actually building IADC is building a building over by the old St. Joseph's. That building that's going up right there, that's IADC. And then you have Ibero, which is the action. That's the league that runs our child care programs, our Ibero Business Center, our business incubator program. So much has happened there. And then you also have Poder, which is our radio station, which works with WXXI. So it's a unique kind of connected family that really is there to not just help the Latino community, but help the greater community of Rochester.
So we're going to talk about what's happening between now and October 12th. And there's a lot.
Oh, yeah. There's not even, I didn't even put half the stuff on the calendar.
You got a calendar on the table here. I've got a longer list right here in front of me. And, one thing Jason can't do, Jason can't speak to every deep political and challenging social issue that's facing it. I mean, those are conversations we've started to have on this program. We've had them in part with Mayor Evans, with other leaders. I know we will continue to do that. So that's not going to be the focus of this hour. Let me just ask you in general, what it feels like in this community now compared to, all your years in the Rochester community. What does it feel like right now?
I am a son of an immigrant. My mother is a Cuban American. I know I have a very white last name. That was my late father's last name. He was 100% Rochesterian. But one of the core things I've learned growing up Latino is that even though we have experienced struggle, we've experienced so much within our culture. Many of us who are Chilean, Argentinian, Mexican, Colombian, you name it, we've all experienced struggle. And one of the great things that come from our culture is our joy. We love to be together. We love to celebrate. And I think that's something that we want to talk more about during this time is our history in the city. I've grown up with my grandfather who passed earlier this year. He organized the Cuban Club with the heads of Ibero. I've known people within Ibero my whole life. And before I even started working for them, I joked with Eugenio, who is my boss, who started IADC and who's one of the founders. It seems like I was born to work for this agency because he's known everybody I've ever known my whole life before I even knew him. So I think for us, it's important to highlight that history, those stories, those important, and that uncertainty that we feel. It's not something we're not faced as a culture before. We've survived dictatorships and we've survived a lot worse.
You mentioned your last name might throw people a little bit off of your Latino heritage trail. Never for long, if you know Jason. Very proud community cheerleader and worker in this community. But what is almost shocking to me in the last couple of weeks has been this conversation in which we've even drifted away from like, well, like if certain things are going to happen, it's like, no, it doesn't matter if there's due process. We've had Tom Homan in the city, the director of ICE. He responded to a question on due process by basically saying, well, you know, some immigrants have killed people and their murder victims didn't get due process, so there. And we're just kind of throwing it away. You put people on a plane to another country without even really knowing if you got the right person. And so all of a sudden you've got some kids who are afraid to go to school, and you've got communities feeling like do I need to be looking over my shoulder? That's not the culture, that's not the climate that anybody wants anywhere. How do you focus on the joy that we're going to be talking about all hour when people are feeling also that anxiety that is happening?
The focusing on the joy is, I think, growing up, I have my mother who is, survived Castro, survived coming here, and had so much stuff happen. Her earliest memory at 4 was being dragged out of a closet she was hiding in by gunpoint. My abuelo was chased throughout the country of Cuba just to come here. And one of the things I've always experienced when I was a child was when we got together, all of that didn't matter. It mattered that we were together and that we lifted our voices and we danced. We walk in la lucha, in the struggle. We go through it. We live through it. We fight through it. And that's, to me, what it is right now. These events highlight that. To highlight that we have Ra Con Poder, Latinx pride for the LGBT community, to highlight the importance of our LGBT community, which is also under threat at this time.
It's like an act of defiance?
You could say that.
Joy as defiance?
Joy is defiance. To have, to dance, there's a thing in Puerto Rican culture called the bomba. And it is a song and a dance to the drum, but it was used as a way to defy the slave owners in the Spanish colonies. We've always used dance. We've used our music. We've used our food even to defy cultures. The reason we have tacos was, what we gave to the American workers, across the border. The cultural history of Latinos in America has always been a way of, we've been here since before anybody got here. After the Native Americans came the Latinos. We've been here the longest out of our culture. Yes, there's a lot of horrible history. I'm not going to acknowledge, but we also have been part of this narrative. Latinos have fought in every single war since before there was America. We fought in the French and Indian War, for goodness sakes. Cubans funded the American Revolution. People don't even talk that there was Spanish, Puerto Rican generals in the Confederacy and in the Union. Latinos are some of the most decorated soldiers during World War I and World War II out of minorities. And we forget that narrative is there. So I think, to me, it's like, when I look at these events, I have so much pride in our events. I look at Dominican Day and highlight the importance that Dominican culture has given to Rochester and to America. Some of the greatest baseball players are Dominican. And I'm saying that as a Cuban, which is really hard for me to say because there's some great Cuban players. But there's even better Dominican players. So I think you have to look at this stuff as ways that joy is through every aspect of us.
Talking to Jason Barber, and I said at the outset, I thought maybe a significant number of people who are going to hear this conversation today have not yet been to International Plaza. So put it on a map for people. We'll talk a little bit about the history and what the mission is there.
Yeah. So the International Plaza is over on North Clinton Ave, right across from St. Michael's, which is in many ways a symbol of the Latino community in Rochester. It has been around this year will be the 4th year. It was the brainchild of Eugenia Marin, Miguel Menendez, Jim Farr, and many other individuals that within the community to kind of build a place within an incubator space and also a market space within the North Clinton neighborhood, to take over what used to be a vacant lot and a heroin alley and turn it into a space where the culture of the neighborhood, both Black and Latino culture, and can be lifted up, where the diversity of our neighborhood is shown and spotlighted, where events, not just Hispanic focused events or Latino focused events, but African American focused events, can be, and neighborhood focused events, church events. We've had it all there, so can be highlighted within the neighborhood.
And you told the Democrat and Chronicle that you've even had police officers say that International Plaza is like an oasis in the neighborhood.
Oh, yeah. Well, we've even had drug dealers say that. You can ask Beatrice.
He's talking about Beatrice LeBrun with Father Tracy Advocacy Center, which is not far away.
Yep.
And so I know it means a lot to the neighborhood. Going back and reading the history in the neighborhood, North Clinton was settled by Irish immigrants in the early 1800s, initially called Dublin, and then it became known as Upper Falls as Black American and Puerto Rican families arrived in the 1940s. And then by 1970s, entrepreneurs had established grocery stores and delis and barbershops and pharmacies. And so it evolves into now what is this really vibrant place where a lot of different parts of Latino culture come to celebrate, come to some of these events. So when you talk to people who've never been, or maybe they used to be on North Clinton and it's been years, and they come back to International Plaza, what is it like for them?
It's very. That's a good question. I've actually had my mom, who grew up over in Avenue D, come some of the events, and for her, there's a very definitive connection of that neighborhood. Now, if you look at old pictures of the North Clinton and where the plaza actually was located, there used to be rows of Spanish businesses right across from where Beatrice, where Father Tracy Center is, and where those two parking lots are between St. Michael's and Father Tracy and there's beautiful pictures if you go at Barrow's headquarters, of that neighborhood, of the Spanish laundromats and the Puerto Rican restaurants and bakeries. And it's almost like for them, it's like bringing something back from the past that was lost, to have a Mexican in Colombia and having, bacalitos and pina coladas and empanadas being served there, and having these small businesses, highlighted there, and having Latinos kind of take ownership again. And they're in shipping containers, but this is the first step for them to have a brick and mortar eventually. So so it's a very unique way of bringing back those memories, within the neighborhood.
And you mentioned your mother's first memory of childhood when she was 4.
Mm-hmm.
What is your first memory of trying to kind of understand culture and what the neighborhoods were like when you were growing up?
Well, I grew up, I am a kid of what you would arguably say the white flight era, the early 90s.
Yeah.
My mother grew up in North Clinton and then moved over to the Edgerton and Maplewood neighborhood. So I spent my really early years in the Maplewood neighborhood by Kodak Park. And, but I also, some of my earliest memories were of these two different worlds. My dad's side of the family, the Italian-American side, or as I like to call it, the 100% Rochesterian. They've been here for 100 years. They had a business at Midtown, Orange Julius. So I spent time in Midtown, and then on the Sundays, I would go to a Spanish church and be surrounded by strong, loud Latino women and men, Dominican, Hondurans, Guatemalans, who had come here in such unique, different ways, but they all had these stories. My pastor as a child was in prison. Everybody I knew either had a story of horror, but yet they had joy on their face. So I had this two different worlds in my childhood. The Rochesterian side, the Kodak / Midtown side, and then the Cuban side, which was, people that served and gave. My grandfather didn't have much money. He was low income, lived in a local apartment. But every time I opened the basement of that building that he lived in, and this was a low income apartment building over on Ridgeway, he had beds, mattresses, dishes, silverware, and any refugee, anybody who came to this country, he would go, open the door. What do you need? And that is something I've seen within Ibero, IADC, and Poder. That's the same ethos that many of us were raised with. And I think that's something that's continued within our community.
Your dad, Italian-American?
Yes.
Was he like a barbieri and did it change to barber?
Yeah, it's like a barber. I think they changed their name because Kodak didn't hire Italians in the 20s.
I asked exactly for that reason. That I mean, there's so many families with these stories that like,
Yeah.
well, you better change your name. And what makes me a little nervous now is all the work that you're describing over the decades to build up this, not only this place with International Plaza, but this community that feels welcoming, that feels like people have a future. You worry that things could get undone. You got an administration offering people $1,000 to relocate back to countries where they have roots if they just leave, and they're offering people like, go, here's $1,000 now. Stephen Miller's working in the White House talking about this is the thing that he cares about most. You worry about undoing some of the work over the decades? You don't think so?
No, I don't think so. I think our community is strong, and I think we will survive through. And I think I have complete confidence in joining that.
Well, let's look at the schedule here. And by the way, how was this past weekend?
The weather wasn't the
It's
greatest.
been terrible all spring, man. It's really been terrible.
I wish we had about 60 people come, which I wish it was a lot more. But surprisingly, we had a lot of people come. A lot of young students come because they've seen it on the public market Instagram, so they want to try Alex Garcia's Colombian tamales, which he hates it, but I love calling them the Colombian garbage plate because it's a banana leaf, it's in a banana leaf, but it's like rice dough or corn dough with a pork chop, some hard-boiled eggs, some carrots, and sometimes a chicken leg. Or like a chicken breast.
Colombian garbage plate.
Yeah, it's a Colombian garbage plate. He hates it because it's like it's not. You don't say that in Spanish, but it is a Colombian tamale, and it's amazing. People come just for that. And then we also have, amazing. We're currently going to have a Venezuelan vendor and an Ecuadorian grocery store, which I just spent way too much money with her buying, Colombian, Ecuadorian cheeses and rices and stuff that I'm never going to find anywhere in Rochester. So.
And again, if you're just joining us, Market Day is at the Plaza every Sunday, 1 to 5 p.m.
It's actually, but we're all our food vendors are open Wednesday through Sunday.
So the vendors Wednesday through Sunday.
Our events, we have major market events on every Sunday throughout the Plaza. Also some Saturday events. We also should be having food truck events, but we're still working on those dates.
And you've got food vendors representing, you mentioned Ecuador, Puerto Rico, Colombia, Mexico, Venezuela.
Yeah.
It's a long list.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. And I get to try, let's see what I had this weekend. Alex made me some chorizo and blood sausage. Such good. Yeah.
So for people who want to mark their calendars and maybe think about coming out here, I want to kind of walk through some of the I don't want to say bigger events. I'm sure every week feels big to you guys, but let me just kind of go through some of them. You mentioned Latinx Pride Day. That's June 1st. Mm-hmm. Tell me about that.
So right now we're working on it. This is highlighting, the Rainbow Revolution, kind of a theme that, Trillium's been talking about. But we are, working on kind of highlighting the LGBTQ and trans community within the Latino community. Also, we also highlight the Latino drag community. This is a very unique way in which, every drag performer is of Latin descent, so within our performances. And it's also really just a fun event, to have these drag queens come in, and you have these young kids that just want to have pictures taken with them, and they love it, and they're just enjoying the moment.
Anybody give you any criticism for that?
I haven't seen any.
You haven't seen any?
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Yeah, there hasn't, and we've never really experienced anything of that. So.
Okay. So that's June 1st, Latinx Pride Day at the International Plaza.
Yep.
July 12th, Rock con Poder.
Oh, this is going to be amazing. This is the first time we've done it at the Plaza. So Poder usually has a very big concert series. They've done it usually at Martin Luther King Park every year. But Victor Antonetti, who I can't stop talking about Victor because I'll come back to Victor in a little bit. But Rock con Poder is going to be at the Plaza. So we're expecting maybe somewhere between 2,000 to 5,000 people. Probably even more, because that's usually how they get. And they usually bring in large Latin acts within Rochester, and it's going to be an event where it's just going to be a party. It's going to be a great party. We're going to close off the block. We're gonna it's going to be in many ways a block party.
What's the capacity when you're really busting at the seams there?
About 4,000. So we're going to be
I
tested.
believe you just said 2,000 to 5,000.
It could be more. It probably is more. I mean, last year we had close to 4 for Dominican Day, probably a little under. But Rock Compadre may test the capacity. We're going to see. So we will be busing people in from over from the Tops Plaza, ideally, and from either from school, the Martin Luther King School. So we'll be ideally busing people, but people come. People enjoy it. Dominican Day was an amazing party last year. So
Dominican Day, August 10th.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have never been to the International Plaza, we've been talking about Latinx Pride Day, Rock con Poder, Dominican Day. Is there a day that, because I mean, like in a minute we're going to talk about International Salsa Day, and I'm like, oh, that would be a good day to kind of go check it out.
Oh yeah, it's a great
time.
salsa competition.
Is there a day that you go like you really shouldn't miss X?
You know, I think like for me, the days that you really don't want to miss: Rock con Poder, Dominican Day, International Salsa Day, Festival del Barrio are going to be just unique events. Also, any of the Rock the Plaza events, which are going to be hip hop, R&B, and soul nights. Those are amazing events if you want to listen to classic hip hop. Grand Tone and Evan Butley are kind of been organized in different R&B events throughout and I'm excited about those because I love listening to like the 90s and 2000s hip hop that I grew up in. So that I'm excited about. But let's see. I think also, it's one of the events we didn't talk too much about, but I also think is really important is Festival del Barrio. That is an event that has a long history.
What's the date of that one?
That is, it's going to be Sunday, July 20th. And that's an event I'm working with Beatrice on and with Father Ruiz over at St. Michael's, because it is an event that has a long history within the Latino community. It's an event that Father Tracy himself started back in the day. And it's an event that if you ask anybody, baby boomers, older people, older generation, and you say, "Oh, do you remember this event?" Yes, this was our community event in North Clinton, and to kind of bring that back, talk about that history of that event and the importance that it has to the North Clinton neighborhood and to Latinos within Rochester is something that I've been very proudful of. I've actually been asking people to send me old photos so I can use it on the promotion, because I want to tell that story, of how this little event really is kind of like the way in which the neighborhood would come together, behind the, the huge steeple of St. Michael's.
Sunday, July 20th, the Festival de Barrio.
Yep.
And, Father Tracy's as an advocacy center now, for those who have spent time there, and you mentioned Beatrice LeBron, I know you guys work with her.
I love her.
I know you've got a lot of regard for Beatrice and the staff there. Megan Mack and I spent an afternoon there just meeting people and watching them do the work. And, Jason, you mentioned that International Plaza, before it existed 4 years ago, was an area that had, you kind of described as there was a heroin alley it wasn't what it is now. Drugs are an issue in many neighborhoods in Rochester, not just that one. Father Tracy as an advocacy center was amazing to me how many people they knew by name and what kind of trust and relationship they had built. But they also were clear that we still have issues here and we need to keep pushing towards cleaner, healthier streets. How is the area now? How would you describe it in 2025?
I think, just as Beatrice said, it's very similar. It's always a process. We're all working on the same process. And I feel like the plaza is a unique way, and to be honest, the time I've been there, which has been the last year and a half, I haven't seen anything that, within that neighborhood. It all seems like a lot of people within the neighborhood have been very protective of the space,
of
our vendors and the space. Yes.
Because it's such a point of pride now, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It really is. And I think yes, that is an issue within the street. But it's also an issue everywhere in Rochester.
Yeah.
Really, you can't find it. You can find it on Park, and you can find it on Monroe. I like to say, and you can find it on North Clinton. It's the drug epidemic it's in every single street in Rochester.
No, it's pretty heartening to hear, though, that there is a sense of taking ownership and pride and protection of International Plaza, of saying, this is our space. This is
La Maqueta. That's it.
La Marqueta, exactly. How do the surrounding neighborhoods feel when you got 4,000 people?
I think, I think they like it. They don't mind it.
A lot of energy.
It's a lot of energy. It's definitely a lot of energy. I haven't known any issues at my time, but I think many of our neighbors are very active. Actually, our Juneteenth event, Lori Evans, who's one of the neighbors of the plaza, I'm working with her to kind of get that event started. We did it last year, and we're doing it again this year with her. So it's building those connections within the neighborhood is also good, so that the neighborhood knows that they have a place at the plaza for them.
And just tell me a little bit more about Salsa Day. August 24th here. Who's going to be there?
Well, I don't know. I'm waiting for Lysandra to tell me. She's going to be the one she's booking some of the events. But every year we do a major competition. I know last year we had Naomi and Orchestra Antonetti to go back with Orchestra Antonetti. Is their 55th year of being an orchestra. And they're amazing. Like, I wish they got more recognition. The idea that they brought Saya Cruz, Tita Puente, Mark Anthony to Rochester, and nobody's ever given them recognition for that. And they brought Bad Bunny before Bad Bunny blew up. It's just like, what? Like, this should be in the Rochester Music Hall of Fame, and they're not. Like, it's kind of, it's just the idea that, like, Tita Puente would come just to perform with Orchestra Antonetti in the 70s and 80s, and that's, like, legends of the salsa community. So I think, like, to have what Victor has done, and now Victor is the director of Poder, to highlight the importance of Latin radio, Latin music in our neighborhood. And his daughter is on Broadway as the #1 star of Buena Vista Social Club.
Now, are you a good salsa mover?
According to my mother, I did inherit the rhythm.
You did or did not?
I try. I didn't. I try. I really do try. I have to dance. Trust me, the abuelitas will make me dance at every event. They'll get me up, and I got a salsa or merengue or bachata with them. But I can handle it, but I'm not the best at it.
International Salsa Day, if you want to learn to boogie with Jason. August 24th. When we come back from our only break, we're going to continue to run down the list of what's going on at International Plaza this year. Listeners may remember, it was probably in the, a couple of years before the pandemic that there was a lot of talk about doing this, about creating an International Plaza, La Marqueta, coming to North Clinton, and now it's here. And every year they pack the schedule. So you've got market days at the International Plaza every Sunday afternoon from 1 to 5 through October 12th, although they also have got a Colombian-style Christmas in December that we're going to talk about here.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
So we'll talk about that coming up here. But they also have all kinds of other programming and events on different days and nights. So just want to make sure that you're aware of something that is happening in this community that brings a lot of energy, great food, Colombian garbage plates. I shouldn't say that again, but it sounds really great.
We're going to have also Venezuelan food soon, and I'm excited for when she opens up in the next month or so.
We'll talk more food and a lot more on the other side of this break with Jason Barber, the International Plaza Site Manager for Ibero-American Development Corporation.
Support for your public radio station comes from our members and from Mary Cariola Center, providing education and life skills solutions designed to empower individuals and the families of those with complex disabilities. Mary Cariola Center, transforming lives of people with disabilities. More at marycariola.org. And Springboard, a funding competition focused on activities, networking, and events that work to grow the entrepreneurial ecosystem throughout Western New York. Applications are due June 10th, 2025. Details at springboardny.org.
This is Connections. I'm Evan Dawson. Jason Barber, remind people where the International Plaza is. La Marqueta.
It is over in the North Clinton neighborhood, right before you get to Clifford Ave. You'll see it. You'll see the big blue shipping containers with signs for New Generation Eats and from Dimitera food, so Mexican Colombian food. So you'll see that. You'll see our entrance. You'll see our signs, and you'll see the stage that says La Maqueta. Yeah.
Give me a little bit more of the taste of the food that you're looking forward to this season.
Oh my gosh! You know what I'm very proud of within the Plaza has been the Ibero Business Center and Incubator. We have been a place where businesses have flourished in the sense because we have an amazing people that like really help these people get themselves settled. One of my favorite we have Alexander Garcia, who is the strongest entrepreneur I've ever met, and they hustle. Everybody within these businesses really hustle to kind of make stuff happen, but the food is the best part. For Dimitera, does focus on Mexican Colombian, he is obsessed with the idea of creating the most authentic Mexican and Colombian food in Rochester. He wants to make food that is of his culture, and of his wife's culture, who's Colombian. We have Janit, who runs Di Par de las Salinas, who is focused, on just traditional Puerto Rican fried food, that kind of food that, and like you get at a party, the empanadas and the acapullos, or the potato balls, which are like kind of like potato meatballs. They have this, it's amazing. And then, we have Roxy, who's just started, who's really wants to bring Venezuelan food to Rochester, and highlight the importance of Venezuelan food. And we have Luz, who just started a little kind of Ecuadorian grocery store. You find any little goods that if you like there. So it's very unique. And then we also have Yasmin, who's been there the longest. She's been there 4 years. She's a Romanian, who her family has been consistently making businesses happen in Rochester throughout the neighborhood. Her father, Mike, has done that very well. But she's kind of doing traditional American style food, ice cream, also empanadas, fried chicken. But hopefully this year, kind of bring back some of the Romanian dishes and unique sausages and meats. So we're really highlighting that importance of the food within it, and I think that's one of the greatest joys about being at the Plaza is people sometimes just come for the food and listen to the music. Like they'll sit in the cafe, and last year was a great example of that. Last year, there were times at our events which you had people listening, but we had more people at the cafe area. At the shipping containers, eating, sitting there with big meals and talking and having fun. And you're watching kids play around and you're watching their family buy like the Colombian tamales and Mexican tamales or getting tacos from Alex and, bacalitos from Provi or from other, so it's just like, and then having pina coladas or milkshakes or Colombian, horchatas and, like just full of different cultural food.
How often is music there?
We try to do it every weekend, a different form of music. Even though it's just a DJ playing some music, if it's like our Father's Day event, which will be specifically music and a dominoes tournament, which is, I love watching that. Burgos Tax sponsors that. And then we also have, our line dance tournament, which is specifically hip hop line dance and R&B line dance. And then you have karaoke with DJ Bonatillo, who is an amazing Latino and Dominican artist here in Rochester of his band Bandolay, and he's constantly doing unique projects. He's managing karaoke, which is great to have everybody come up and sing, like hearing them sing old Hector Lavoe songs or Celia Cruz or Luis Vanguel or Mark Anthony songs, and some people doing it great, some people doing it horribly. So I love
It's always very entertaining.
Yeah, it's very entertaining. So I think it's very unique. And also right now I'm also working with the RPO to do an event in August with Arts in the Plaza, having some of the cultural institutions come. That's something that's been very hard, I think, for us to kind of get to, is to get some of these cultural institutions to leave the center city and come out to North Clinton.
Tell me more about that.
I think I've been grateful that George Eastman House has really been kind of working with Poder and building that relationship, and so has the RPO. But I think it's just maybe the bandwidth issue. They just don't have the cultural the bandwidth to set up a table. But we've had cultural institutions come. But it's a very interesting time. I think for. As somebody who works within the arts, also as you know, I work within the arts community here. I want to see more, and I hope to see more within the institutions.
Why do you think it's been a struggle at times?
I don't know if maybe it's the narrative. Maybe it's hard to kind of and also sometimes institutions get stuck in kind of tokenism, like, hey, well, can you come do some dances and celebrate with us? And I'm like, yeah, but that's not our stories. There's more to our stories. And I think I like right now what the George Eastman House has been working with us. I've been working on my side project, which is a film series, which I've been on here, Connections, before. And they've been very active in kind of saying, okay, there's a huge history of Latinos in cinema. Let's explore that. And they've been very grateful for that. And I've been very loving that they've been doing that. But I'm encouraged, and I hope for that more of the institutions kind of see that there's more narrative within our culture, and there's more stories within our culture to be told, and it's not just the images of us. As I like to say, we're not just there to dress in costumes and dance for you. Which is great, but
yeah.
You got to pay us to dance for you.
Has the city of Rochester done enough?
I think they have, but I can't really speak to that. So
okay, certainly the success of International Plaza, the success and the revitalization of that part of our city,
yeah,
should be important to everybody.
Yeah, and I think the city has, especially the public market, has Jim and Erica and everybody at the public market have been our greatest cheerleaders. We love people at the public market and people at the city, because they've been very supportive of the initiatives of the plaza. They've been there for us in many ways.
The city has supported festivals like Jazz Festival.
Yeah.
Many others. Are they supporting International Plaza in commensurate ways?
I think so. But I think they are, especially because we're working with the public market, they've been supporting us way more, like so much more. I love seeing Jim at the plaza, he's the director of the public market, and he's there all the time. He knows all of our businesses, all the owners. He knows all the vendors. He knows the people across the street. And he sometimes stays there longer than he should. I'm like, aren't you supposed to be over at the public market? And he's just like, no, I'm just going to sit here. He'll put out his chair, get some food, and I think the city has been very supportive of us and many of our initiatives. And we work with the city a lot with different projects. Project Tips is a great example of this.
What is Tips?
I believe I may be wrong on this, but it's a program within the police department and different law enforcements that come in, and we've done initiatives with them. I'm trying to believe. We've also worked with different last year, Averja did a women's voice talk, a little rally there. So we're always open to building our relationship with the city.
No, I think
strengthen it.
I think putting just a point on this part of the conversation, what I'm hearing, I think you say, is that you want everybody to see you for everything that the International Plaza and this community can bring, not in a way that is, to use the word you use, tokenized.
Yes.
Not just a, hey, we did our one event, or we invest in this one thing, or we put on one dance thing, and isn't that enough here? As opposed to, this is a part of the fabric of the community, just like our festivals of all kinds, just like all of our neighborhoods. One of the things that I've heard for years in political debates in this city is, what does it mean to invest in the neighborhoods? As in, there's a lot of talk about downtown, but do the neighborhoods get the right kind of investment and attention? And that's not always an easy conversation, because the question is, what's the infrastructure? What can you do? International Plaza was a huge dream.
And I'm so blessed to be part of this dream.
And here it is. It wouldn't have happened without who? Who made that happen?
There's so many people, but I look at and I can't speak to all the people who've been involved, but the people I know.
Sure, yeah.
Miguel Menendez, Jim Farr, Eugenio Maren, Ada Perez, Lori Evans, Angie over, at Ibarra. There's so many people that this has been a dream of even far before I even knew that it even existed, and I think it's really a unique, I think those are the people that don't often speak enough of, he's going to hate it, but Eugenio is someone I look up to, and he is, not just because he runs IADC, but because he's one of those humble Latinos, very much like my abuelo, very much like my tios and tias, and my own mother. Those that don't say what they do, but they've done everything, for their community. And I think Miguel is like that. Many other people within the community are so much like that. And we could cheerlead them as much as they want, but they would hate being cheerleaded.
They also created this dream and put it into reality at a really challenging time in two different ways. The first is you're coming off a pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
You're open in 2021. And the second is we are just in the last decade or two, the advent of screens and digital technology just keeps so many people less connected to whether you're going out to a movie at the little theater or you're going out to your coffee shop. We're doing less of that as a society. It's been pretty well documented and studied. And so you create a place that's a destination that requires people to get out, whether they're walking from the neighborhood or they're coming in on a bus or they're driving in, they're going to bicycle in, they're going to go to International Plaza, and they're going to make an intentional trip. They're going to listen to music in person. They're going to eat food, and they're going to walk around, and they're going to shop, and they're going to talk to people, and they're going to have a great time. I think it's a lot of challenging things that have come together to make it even more difficult. How successful right now? Do you guys behind the scenes? You don't have to tell me anything you don't want to tell me, but I'm going to try to get out of here. Behind the scenes, you go like, well, we're going to need this kind of attendance this year. This is what we had last year. This is where we need to be. How is that going?
I think this year we're very surprised. I think we're encouraged that everything's kind of planned ahead. We're trying to work on, I've been very surprised with some of the funding, and been grateful for it. And I think, we don't know the uncertainty, but we also know that people will come. We're hopeful. And I think I've been very encouraged that, like you said, like with social media sometimes is our best friend. It's not our worst enemy. I know some people.
You're recruiting?
Yeah, I think we've been pushing a lot more social media. Having Poder behind us has been an amazing blessing to speak to the Latino audience, but also building new connections. Why is am I on connections in the first place? To work with WXXI more, to work with different organizations to say, okay, here is this unique destination. Here is a space that many ways everyone talked about, this is what they want to do with Parcel 5. But we're doing it in North Clinton.
It's really interesting you say that because in so many ways, that Parcel 5 conversation, it ended up happening at La Marqueta.
Yeah, at La Marqueta. We've done what they wanted to do. We are having successful business. We're having successful businesses pop up. We are having unique events. We're packing the calendar. But yet, we're not going to get the same coverage as, Parcel 5 is because it's in the center of the city and it's a vacant lot. Here's a space that is constantly growing and changing. We're building new shade structures. We're going to get new containers by the end of the year for more vendors that want to come there. And I think that needs to be spotlighted. That needs to be highlighted more often. I love Parcel 5, don't get me wrong, but it's empty 99% of this year. We're still doing stuff in Christmas. And our vendors are still open all year round, our two front vendors.
We're going to get to the Colombian Christmas in a second. We're going to button up the schedule. A couple of emails. Alex wants to know if it is a secure place for families to attend.
Yes, it is. It is. We are, especially on Sundays. Well, the Rochester City Police Department, we have security there. We're a very secure place.
And Michael Huffman, one of our regulars who has some really good memories there. He says he hopes that the plaza is successful. He was a member of Corpus Christi Church that helped the members of St. Michael's restore their church. He says it's such a beautiful church. And
Corpus Christi's over on East Main. Yeah.
But he wants to know, did the guests say that the open air drug market was closed down? He said St. Michael's was his grandparents' church. His parents and godparents were married there, and he was baptized there. So lots of memories for Michael. I don't know that I heard Jason say anything about an open air drug market. I think what you mentioned is before International Plaza, there was, like many other neighborhoods, issues with drug sales, heroin, things like that. It doesn't mean that it's completely gone from the area.
Yes.
But in general, what would you say to Michael about the situation with drugs and the site there?
I think, if you're coming in with that kind of initiative, you're already going to be hyper aware. But I think like if you look at I always say like if you go to Father Tracy, you're seeing these individuals outside. They're there many ways to go through rehab, and they're also our ambassadors to the neighborhood. You know, if I have to have flyers for events, who do you think's going out to reach out to people within the neighborhood?
Mm-hmm.
I can't get to 100 houses, you know, like, so I think you have to be, you know, aware of that. But also, I think you also have to look at, you can't close off your mind right now with the drug epidemic, because the drug epidemic is not in just one neighborhood anymore. We can't say it's on North Clinton, it's on Joseph Ave, because it's in Irondequoit, it's in Greece, it's in Gates, it's on Park Ave even, you know? So it's like we can't close our eyes to that anymore.
And Michael, I'm glad you have such great memories there. There's a lot of people who love those spaces, I can say, having visited recently. Let me get a phone call from the president of City Council, Miguel Melendez.
Oh,
on
hey,
the line
boss.
with us. He said, "Hey, boss." Hi, Miguel.
Hey,
Miguel.
good afternoon, everyone.
Hey, what do you make of International Plaza 4 years in here? How's it doing?
Well, it's feeling great. I think that every year we take another step forward. You know, there's no secret that there's a lot of opportunity, a lot of challenges in the community, but the plaza, to me, is a beacon of light for
It's true.
economic development, for community gathering, and positive energy in the community.
Do you feel like the city has done what it needs to do to invest and support La Marqueta in the way that it needs to be able to thrive long term, Miguel?
I do. I think there's always opportunity for enhancement. You know, this year we're looking to add a couple additional containers on the site, so we're working through that process now. But I also feel that, you know, part of this is really growing internally and organically within the neighborhood. And what we need to continue to do is find more outside partners. It can't just be solely dependent on city government. So we're working on strategies to get more resources to the plaza, to the vendors, to support them, and to grow their businesses.
What's an example of an outside partner that you think is a good fit here?
Yeah, I think, you know, we have places like the Enterprise Center at Pathstone. You know, Ibero, obviously we have a role within the context of the plaza now, but our business development support, the Ibero Business Center, has provided a lot of technical support and things like loans for purchases of equipment for vendors of the plaza. So I think that the more we can grow from the business perspective is great, but then also the space is a venue for all people. So, you know, there might be organizations that want to host community fairs there, and other types of events that are beyond that. The site is available for rent for those purposes as well.
And Miguel, before I let you go here, tell me something that you'd love to go snack on at International Plaza.
Oh man, this is dangerous question there, Evan. So for me, I think that, you know, we have some great Colombian food that's right in the front there on the North Clinton Avenue streetscape. I'm a big empanada guy, so there's different types and different people who sell them. So you can get varying types and try to figure out which one's the best one for you.
Yeah. Also, you love the little breads that they make. What is it that Alex makes? I forgot the name of it.
Oh yeah, I couldn't tell you the name either, other than it's really good.
Yeah. You're a big fan of
Miguel,
that.
hey, thanks for the phone call. I know we got a lot to talk about on other issues. We'll do that soon.
All right, thank you. Take care.
Thanks.
Miguel Melendez,
Miguel.
thank you to Miguel. And let's see what Annette Ramos loves.
Oh, boy.
There's Annette on
There's
the line
my
as
hi,
well.
Titi.
Hi, Annette.
Hello, my beautiful people. Thank you so much for having us, Evan. And thank you for always highlighting our community-rich resources, the International Plaza being one of them. One of my favorite places to go, eat, meet people, dance, listen to music, and gather in communities. So and by the way, my favorite food, the codfish fritters.
We don't
A
make those
must-have.
anymore. Annette,
no.
Provi retired.
No.
She moved to Florida.
No. So now I'm going to have to go for the empanadas,
Yes.
and I'm going to choose wisely which
Yes.
ones I like.
Yes, because we have Venezuelan, Puerto Rican, Colombian, Mexican, and American style. So,
And I love that variety of Latino food. And that's what the plaza does. It creates a central hub for cultural diversity and inclusion, and really the richness of our sanctuary city, highlighted literally on the blocks of our city landscape.
Well, and that, hey, I'm down to our last minute. Oh, my goodness gracious. Miguel and Annette taking us to the finish line here.
love you, Titi.
Thank you for calling in, Annette, here. And
Love you all.
we'll see you down at the
Bye.
plaza this year. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
That is the absolutely effervescent Annette Ramos.
Yeah, she likes to call. She's my TT.
Amazing.
Like my aunt, like not my real aunt, but like
Yeah, absolutely. And so if you're just tuning in late here, Market Days at the International Plaza have launched. And if you haven't been out to the International Plaza on North Clinton, I know they would love to see you this year. We didn't even get to, oh my gosh, the car show, the Latin American Festival, Colombian Style Christmas, December 7th. So you got 30 seconds, Jason. Take us to the finish line. What do you want people to know?
All right. So Miguel kind of highlighted the importance of it. You know, the plaza is there. It's a unique space for food, culture. It is a beautiful sanctuary and oasis, for, as Annette says, for the city. And it's also like a unique place to rent, do amazing events at, and a unique place to kind of highlight the importance of our beautiful, amazing city.
Thank you for coming in. Thank you for telling us about it. Are you online for people to find the schedule?
Yes. If you go to the International Plaza, it's on the city website. So and you'll see the schedule all up there.
Have a great season there. Have fun.
Thank you.
And it's not just Sundays, but every Sunday afternoon. I think with one exception in August. They've got 1 to 5, those market days, and then they've got all kinds of events. Jason Barber joining us from the International Plaza. And thank you for listening, listeners. Thank you for watching, viewers on the YouTube channel for WXXI News. Wherever you're joining us, thank you for supporting your public media. We'll be back with you tomorrow.
This program is a production of WXXI Public Radio. The views expressed do not necessarily represent those of this station, its staff, management, or underwriters. The broadcast is meant for the private use of our audience. Any rebroadcast or use in another medium without expressed written consent of WXXI is strictly prohibited. Connections with Evan Dawson is available as a podcast. Just click on the Connections link at WXXInews.org.